Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Hranek. I am the editor-founder of W.M. Brown Magazine, and these are some of my friends. And thanks for coming, and thanks to the St. Regis for putting this great gig together for us. To my left, we have Angel Ramos. Say a big round of applause. Next is Caroline Andrews, Brian Sacawa, and Michael Andrews. No relation? Okay. I'm going to start this off. I mean, the funny thing is I know these characters, and we've just met, but I don't really know a lot about the beginnings. And I do think the beginnings and the trajectory and how we get to where we are, or they are, I think is important. And because I think everyone here, except Caroline, was doing something else. And they decided to get on this path to style and menswear, and however you want to call it, bespoke tailoring, dressing. And I think, I think the beginnings are really interesting. And I want to start first with Michael. The quick one-liner elevator pitch, where did you start and why did you get here? Okay? Go. Clock's running.
So I'm a recovering M&A lawyer, and I will date myself. A couple people in here will get this. I always say I'm the Victor Khayyam of custom tailoring.
Okay, now that needs an explanation. There's a lot of people from Europe here.
Yes. So yes, he famously bought Remington razors, right? And as I liked it so much, I bought the company. So I had to wear a suit and tie to work every day. And loved it so much, decided to start my own company. But the truth is, I wasn't finding out there what I wanted at the time. I mean, this was 20 years ago. There really wasn't great custom options in the States. You could go to Savile Row and spend a small fortune or a large fortune, depending on where you went. But it wasn't commonplace in the States, and I thought there was a great opportunity. I had some stuff made in Hong Kong, fell in love with the idea, but wanted to bring a level of service and quality to the industry and bring it stateside. So that's where I am.
Excellent. Brian.
Wow. Well, I grew up in a small town in upstate New York. No,
Wait, where in upstate New York are you from?
Schenectady. Rotterdam, if you want to go a little deeper.
We're upstate New York boys.
Yes. So I got into it. I was actually halfway through my career in the Army, so I joined the Army in 1999 to play the saxophone in the United States Army Field Band from Washington, D.C. That's what I went to school for. I'm a musician by trade. About halfway through my career, I had a lot of extra things in my life that I used to do. I ran a music series at the Contemporary Museum in Baltimore for 5 years, and I was done with that. I raced a bicycle for almost 10 years at the elite level, and I was done with that. So I retired from those things, and suddenly I had nothing extra in my life. So being the kind of person who wants to do stuff, I thought, well, I'm kind of at a place in my life where I can start to think about improving my style. And I grew up, and my father worked for New York State government. He was always well dressed in a suit or jacket and slacks. And of course, the very cliche part of my style, which I think we share, Matt, is that he introduced me to James Bond, and who doesn't want to be like James Bond when you're a little kid? So I went online, as you would do back in 2012, and I couldn't find what I was looking for. Similar to what Michael said, there were some websites back then where it was like if I wanted to dress like I was a guy in the 1920s, I would read those websites or those forums. That wasn't really speaking to me as a 35-year-old guy. And then there were more like the trendy, street style or streetwear kind of guys, and that didn't speak to me. So I'm like, where's the website for the guy like me, normal, just wants to start dressing wear? And there wasn't one, so I decided to start one, and it got...
And that was He Spoke Style.
That was He Spoke Style, and it got...
And that's where we first met. So in this blogosphere that, suddenly you started to unite like-minded people, I think that's how we first found each other. Right. And I was like, wow, this guy is cool. He's writing about stuff that I like, and we were speaking a common style language.
Exactly.
And I think that is the beauty of the connectivity that happens now in the digital space.
And then as far as the clothing, Michael made me my first bespoke suit back in 2012. Over the years, I tried out many different options, but the service that Michael provided, the product that Michael provided, I always came back to. And then at a certain point, Mike said, hey, I'd like to get into online made-to-measure. You've got the audience, you've got the website, you've got all that. I've got the infrastructure. Let's join, let's make a partnership, and that's where we're at right now.
Amazing. Okay, the one character that was set to be and destined for this and trained is Caroline.
Thanks, Matt, and thank you very much all for having me. I feel huge imposter syndrome being here amongst you legends. So I started off doing a foundation diploma at London College of Fashion. Straight out of school, I wasn't very academic, I was very creative. I fell in love with bespoke tailoring, and the rest's history. Basically, I didn't have any prior career or anything. I just was always very creative and loved that.
Were your eyes always set on Savile Row, instead of just
That's a good question.
being in the countryside making clothing?
Yeah, I was at London College of Fashion. I did the foundation diploma there, and then I moved on and did a bespoke tailoring degree, which it was pretty niche. I had the option of doing menswear design or bespoke tailoring, and bespoke tailoring, they had amazing Italian tutors who I learnt pattern cutting and coat making with. And so whilst you're in London, you're kind of studying, you're poor. I was doing lots of waitressing jobs, and I kind of found out about Savile Row, and I was able to learn a lot. I did an internship at Burberry, and Jonathan Saunders, who was a small fashion designer, and then a lot of work experience on Savile Row.
Last but not least, in the description of how you got there is my friend Angel Ramos. Give me the story, Angel.
So I am originally from New York. Born and raised artist. I was a portrait artist when I was younger, and also an athlete. I played in the minors, and when, as I like to say, the minor leagues did not agree with me, and they let me go.
What position did you play?
I was right field.
Okay.
And so I found myself trying to get a job in the real world, and the boss that I had said, "You look like crap, and you can't dress like this." And immediately,
Well, what were you wearing?
I was wearing I don't know where I got the suit, but it was like a green suit. That's all I knew. And rather than getting offended, I think the athlete in me was like challenged, and I said, "Oh, great. So how do you do this thing?" And that's at the time when the Sartorius blog was kind of really hot and heavy, and it allowed me to see all these guys from around the world in this brilliant style of dressing, which I caught on to and tried my best to start to mimic, thus kind of got into the business. I was trying to get a job with whether it was Ralph Lauren, Tom Ford, and a couple of people. That didn't work out just because I didn't have experience. And I made the idiot mistake of starting my own company.
Your mother was a
And my mother
was
right.
a dressmaker?
I grew up, my mother was a dressmaker, and I think because we grew up obviously low income, not obviously, but we grew up low income, and that portion of seeing, having, grown up and everything was made for me. She made our clothes, she made my backpack. I kind of associated.
Was that cool or irritating?
No, it was terrible.
Yeah.
It was terrible. Every time I would come home, I'm like, "Mom, everyone's wearing JanSport." She's like, "Oh, I'll make you one." I'm like, "Yeah, that's not what they want to do." And so, I guess I saw the world of clothing making as a poverty thing and not chic. And so I kind of always ran away from getting dressed. And then, it found me again.
I grew up in an Italian family, and my mom was cheap, and she didn't want to spend a lot of money on clothes. It was like Sears, Tough Skins, and we had an Izod Lacoste outlet in the hometown, and I was such a diehard preppy. Like, my mom was like, we're gonna have to go shopping at the Izod outlet, and I was like, okay. And I think I had socks, belt, pants, sweater, everything I owned had a gator on it. That was a great part of kind of growing up and having a scrappy mom that only wanted to buy discount stuff. It was good that there was the Lacoste outlet. Now, in terms of style and, arriving to house style, and I always, people ask me, "Oh, what tailor should I go to?" Or how do you pick a tailor? And I'm always like, well, how do you want to dress? What do you want to look like? Who do you want to mimic? Because I think this idea of house style, I think, is really important. And I think there's probably, for different, very specific house styles sitting in front of you. So it's sort of like, it's not a random thing. Like, you've got to pick and choose based on who you want to emulate, how you want to dress, and how you feel the best version of yourself. So Angel, give me, since you're holding the mic, give me a quick description of how you think the world perceives your house style.
Yeah, so I'm visually inspired, and so I watch a lot of film, I watch a lot of old film, I collect photos from, my phone has like 120,000 photos. I have a lot of, like, I'm visually stimulated. So my inspiration comes from like old film, it comes from like New York in the 1980s and 90s, like the art scene, Warhol, Basquiat, Halston, Studio 54. And so as I started to create our house style, the idea was like, how do I take that? How do I take this culture of me growing up on an island of Puerto Rico and this Latin flavor and essentially culminate it and say, and how is my dress a conveyance of this kind of spirit of the New York in the 1990s, of this art scene, of, this Latin, upbringing, and how do I take that into something that's not cultural, but is fun, it is gregarious, but has still chicness to it, and that's what we think we did.
I think you do a good job at that. And Caroline, what do you think in terms of, Savile Row is considered a quite specific, conservative, strict point of view. Do you follow those rules, or you're?
So I would say my house style is fluid. I focus a lot on aesthetics. I have a fashion background as well as learning all the techniques and traditional Savile Row methods of making. So I look after each client individually. I really like to get to know them. And I always feel that if someone recognizes my suit, a Caroline Andrews suit, before the person walks into the room, I haven't done my job properly. I like to make sure that it's the person who people notice and just go, oh my God, you look incredible, like what's changed?
Because that, my experience, and I've had some bad experience with tailors where they're just like, oh no, that's the way the shoulder's supposed to look. And I feel like I'm wearing like my dad's clothing.
Yeah.
And I'm often very, very irritated with that. And it can be difficult for somebody coming in for the first time and, wanting bespoke clothing and not having the language to understand, oh, I want a shoulder like this or that. And I think having somebody walk you through those steps is really, really important to gain the language of understanding how to look the way you think you want to look. And I think that's really good.
Yeah.
Brian?
I would say that in terms of house style, it's more of my personal style, which I consider to be classic style, modern sensibility. And everything I do, and that seems to resonate with my audience on social media and people who want to follow me and like what I'm saying. I really consider myself to be an ambassador to the sartorial world for my audience because menswear can be a little intimidating to people, I think.
Oh, really?
Especially people just getting into it. So by focusing on education and letting people know that it's okay to like break the rules sometimes, and look, I can do it. And that's the whole thing about what I'm about is like, if I can do it, you can do it too. It's kind of empowering and confidence and giving people a way into this world where they might feel like they can't get into it.
It's intimidating. It can be intimidating. And Michael, what was not out there that you needed to create for yourself as a point of view?
Well, ironically, it's what we've just come out of. Everything was the size of what we're wearing it today 20 years ago. And there was nothing slim fit at the time when, this felt just so big and baggy. Ironically, it's all back now.
It's all circle.
But it was just they weren't clothes that were cut for anybody, and the American cut 20 years ago was just dumpy and bad, so we thought there was an opportunity. Although ironically, what was slim fit when we started was like a 16 to 18 inch pant bottom, which by the time it swung back was like you couldn't even get your foot through the bottom of your pants.
And in terms of we know there's a lot of the digital space is great for connectivity and connecting people's and people ideas, and finding pieces of real estate that you shouldn't buy. But with all that noise out there, how does Michael Andrews cut through and get the messaging across of what you're trying to provide for people?
It's a great question, and kind of back to your first question about house style, it's something that I think is a little different about us, and there's a real tension here. We're in the service business more than anything else. I mean, I'm an ex-lawyer, and as a lawyer, your job was to give the client what they needed. It was not for you to dictate what they needed. You had to give them good advice, but it was up to them to take your advice or not. And that's always been the approach that we've taken. So if you're going on holiday in Italy, we're going to do something soft and casual and very Neapolitan. And if you're getting dressed for your wedding, we're going to do something likely more structured and more formal. These are business suits. We're going to do something that's more boardroom appropriate. So our house aesthetic is really what the client wants it to be. Now we have our default style, but we'll do anything. The downside of that is when you're building a brand, it's a little harder because your brand is what you put out in the world, and we'll do some wedding outfits that we're all kind of like,
You're like, ouch.
that wouldn't have been my first choice, but that's what the client wanted. And as far as breaking through the noise, our approach has really just always been one client at a time. Do great work, and people will tell their friends. It's a very social product. It's the kind of thing that people like to talk about, and people love to say, I got a guy. And so our job is to make sure that they say, I got a guy.
This brings me to one of the guys I have, Angel Ramos, who love his pants. I'm wearing his jacket. Getting into Angel's pants has been one of the best moves of my life. The question is, Angel, you live, breathe your style. And I think you are the best ambassador for, I think, what you do. And has that always been a strategy for you to you talk about your muses, but you sort of muse yourself, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when I started to realize that I needed to take the business into a house style, it's when I understood how Savile Row worked, and where if you walked into Anderson & Shepherd, they had a specific fit, and if you wanted something much more, structured and bold, you go to Sexton for that. And if you didn't want that, you go to Huntsman. I mean, and so I realized that, I really want to create a photo of our house look. That way, we weren't selling shoulders. We weren't selling the fact that, it's, we have this Neapolitan shoulder that's wrinkled and this, and our lapel. And I wanted people not to focus on that and to always focus on the photo. The photo is, I want to live part of this world.
But you were very much front and center in terms of the visuals of that imagery.
And, I mean, I think that was more so of, it's using my muses to kind of inspire me to get dressed, and by default, just because I didn't have anyone else to use, I ended up being like the face.
Great,
right?
great.
Dang it.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well. And Caroline, do you find that you're only ever wearing the things that you make? Is that a good strategy for you?
Yeah, I think it makes most sense. So I wear trouser suits every day, which is ironic because my grandmother never wore trousers ever. She was always in skirts. But I take measurements. I'm constantly running around the shop to the workshops. So it has to be really functional because I'm like.
So what was I think we talked about this a little bit at dinner, but what was the most complicated thing to learn in terms of building a garment?
Putting on collars. For me, it was putting on collars and putting in sleeves. It was during my final year at London College of Fashion, we had to create a collection, 16 pieces, 4 outfits. And I was really struggling. So it was then that I went into one of the basements on a Saturday morning on Sackville Street. There were these beautiful tailors. They called it the vertical Savile Row because there were 10 different tailors in the same building. So I went into the basement with coffee and croissants on Saturday morning, and I was like, and these all these guys, these old men were like, what are you doing here? And I was
no
like,
one ever brings us coffee.
Yeah, like, well, are you okay? And I was like, look, I'm really sorry. I'm not getting the hang of how to put collars on. Please, can I just sit and watch you? I won't do anything. I'll be really quiet.
So it's not like you asked them to help you. You just wanted to observe the process. And did you learn through that?
Yeah, they became my best friends. And I was there every Saturday, there on
They finished your collection.
Yeah, basically. But because you have to, it's all up here, the knowledge. So you have to just be able to lean in. And luckily I had the opportunity to lean in and learn from some of the best.
Use your resources.
Yeah.
And Brian, you made this transition into creating your own line and taking your personal style and making it available. What was that process like?
It came about by just listening to what my audience was telling me. I was wearing all Michael stuff. And so when I would do a video on YouTube, people would say, where do you get that? Where can I get that? And I would say, Michael Andrews Bespoke. It's Michael Andrews Bespoke. And my particular audience, these are just people getting into it, into style and stuff. Maybe they're in their early 20s to mid 20s, maybe to 30. They just didn't have the means to buy that. They say, oh, well, I couldn't afford that price point. So by partnering with Michael, with the infrastructure, producing our stuff as a private label, we were able to offer my audience direct access to that wardrobe that I was wearing and at a price that they could afford. So it really solved a big problem that I was having in terms of like communicating with my audience and them wanting to dress like me but not being able to afford it. So it's been a really great partnership in that respect.
I think it's really interesting that you've created this umbrella with other brands, you under the support of that umbrella. And was that initially a part of the process for you? Like, did you think that, like, okay, we have Michael Andrews here, but there's a lot of other problem solving that can happen by bringing in these other brands?
It definitely was not originally part of the plan. It has evolved over time. We realized early on to grow, we needed to build some infrastructure. And I think that a lot of small clothiers really struggle with that. If you're a one-man band, you can do, maybe $500,000, $750,000 in sales. But like once you start getting over that, you really need something more than a spreadsheet to manage your business. And so, we had to build this. We spent, God knows how much money on our infrastructure, but then we weren't really big enough to justify what we had spent. So we were bigger than the average clothier, but we were like, how do we start leveraging this platform? And Corey, my right-hand man, really gets the credit for having this vision that we've got a platform that we can help leverage with other folks. And Brian was kind of the first, Angel was the second, and we'll see where we go from there.
What's the advice that you could offer to get on the path, so to speak?
You mean other than become an investment banker?
Yeah, make your money somewhere else. Is that the advice? Yeah, stay away.
Focus on the client first. Really is number one. You've got to do what you say. And I think that one thing that really sets us apart on the service level, again, as an ex-lawyer, if you're told your client you were going to have a contract to them by 5 o'clock on Friday, you damn well got that contract to them by 5 o'clock on Friday, or you were out of work on Monday.
So you're not working with Neapolitan tailors,
right? Well, and that's one of our best advantages is because we own our own workshop and we have complete control over our supply chain. We live up to our commitments. We've got 5 on-site tailors, 20 tailors in our workshop, and so we're able to do anything. And if we need something, can't do it overnight because our workshop's in Shenzhen, but we have, at least on one occasion, put our factory manager on a plane with a suit in hand to get it there in 48 hours. So,
Brian, what about you? Learn to play the sax?
Yeah, so for me, it's all about communicating with people. I love music because it's a way to say something to people or communicate something to people without actually saying anything. And the way that you dress communicates something about yourself. I was talking with Caroline. The question that I get asked often when people find out that I was in the military is that, how did the Army influence your style? And I always say that it's more like the Army was a good fit for my style. Like I told you, my father was well-dressed, James Bond thing. I grew up Roman Catholic, so I had that structure. So coming into that, the Army environment where everything had to be just so, and this ribbon had to be a 1/4 inch above your pocket, like it just made sense to me. It wasn't annoying. And of course, the way you present yourself in uniform in the Army is a reflection of the Army itself. So my job was to travel around all over the country about 100 days of the year into communities where the Army we would interface with these communities to spread, goodwill, the Army, and foster positive relations with the civilian population. So how I looked in uniform was a direct reflection of, they didn't care that we were just in the band. To them, we're the Army. So we show up, we better look our best, because that's like the forward-facing, asset that the Army had to do that sort of thing. Nowadays, I still do that. I told a story. We had this really hard-ass command sergeant major, and when we would travel, I would dress up. I'd wear a jacket and a tie and trousers, and not everyone did that, let's just say. And I walked into the airport, and she said, "Sergeant Sacawa, get over here." And I'm like, oh my God, because this was a very fierce, scary woman. And I was like, "Yes, Sergeant Major." And she says, "You look fantastic. You're representing the Army well." Like, phew, thank you.
And Caroline, what about you in terms of young aspirational Savile Row tailors?
So I would say,
Learn to deliver croissant and coffee to the right people?
I think about this a lot. So I've been going for 7, 8 years, so I'm not, super experienced, and I know that I learn a lot all the time. I would say be hungry, work really hard. I've worked, and I still do work incredibly hard, and I'm very, in tailoring, technically, there's a lot of different ways to do things to get to the same place. So it's great to kind of be open-minded and listen to what other people have to say on Savile Row and around Savile Row in London. Wherever you can meet lots of different people who are willing to kind of teach you their way of doing things. In today, I find that we want everything instantly, whether it's food or photos or whatever. But tailoring is very slow, and it takes a long time to learn things, and we shouldn't try and rush that.
Angel, from one hustler to the other, what is it?
Look, I think the main thing I tell people is build your house. I had the privilege of working for a beautiful real estate company prior to this business. It was Sotheby's, and they were so heavily based on branding and marketing. And yeah, I mean, the idea of this business is you have to build your house. You don't just buy a house and just start furnishing it with anything. You buy the right bed because you want to sleep on a certain bed. You buy the right couch. You start curating pieces inside. It makes it your house. That way, your next door neighbor's house doesn't look the same way as yours. So you need something to differentiate yourself from someone else, so that you do have a good answer when they say, "Why you and not them? Why you and not them?" And so you can have something that's distinct. And you're not just chasing a price point that, well, like, if I can get it from you, he'll give it to me cheaper. So you kind of have to build a house so that your house has something that they want to go visit.
Are there any questions for these guys up here? Andy, front row. Wait, I'm going to be Phil Donahue. 1 second.
Thanks, Phil. With old line Savile Row firms, if you wanted a structured coat, you'd go to Sexton or Huntsman. If you wanted drape cut, you'd go to Anderson Shepherd or one of the members of its tree. Do you think that your approach then is a reflection of starting a business like this in the 21st century, or is it something else? Is it but it seems like it's a different approach, right? And I think you somewhat answered the question earlier, but what is it that you think draws the customer to you?
I'll say in my case, I've always just been my own customer. I mean, and that was really how it started. I got my own stuff custom made and fell in love with the idea. And so I wanted custom swim shorts. I owned a factory so we could make them. I wanted custom jeans, so we made them. And I recognized that I want to be a one-stop shop for folks. And so if you have one really strict house aesthetic, it's going to be really tough to meet the needs of clients who have all kinds of different occasions in their life. So it really has been more from a service standpoint.
Look, I think that as horrible as this answer is going to sound, it's tough not to answer that and say, I mean, we live in an Instagram world. And so I think what draws, and it's not just me, but it's probably all four of us, what draws people to us is us. You display a style, display a specific way of dressing, a specific way of being. It draws people in, and people say, "Oh yeah, I I want to hang with that person. I want to smoke a cigar with them. And then ultimately, I want to dress with him or dress like him. And so, I mean, that's a horrible answer in terms of, because it sounds horribly egotistical, but I mean, it is truth.
Yeah, I know. I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like British person. I'm like, no. But I think, yeah, there's a lot of truth in what you said.
I think when people are looking for a tailor, again, to reiterate this, like, you really have to pay attention to what they're putting out in terms of style. And does that fit into your world? And can you manage to, emulate what Angel is presenting, or figuring out your black tie through the eyes of Brian? Like, I think, there is an evolution in this, and I think that, I always kind of put this mishmash of, what and who I like together often, and people always say, like, well, how do you describe your style? Well, at my core, I'm still an upstate New York preppy. Like, I think I just have better material and better construction, but it's, I'm always an extension of like a herringbone jacket and khakis, always. They're made by better people now, and they're not from the discount shop, but I think that... yeah, can we put gaiters on everything? yeah. Yeah, but I think that and also finding that is about finding who you are and your confidence of how you want the world to perceive you, and what is that vision and that point of view, and do you want to peacock, or do you want to kind of blend into the background? I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4 great choices to figure out who that person is you want to be, and I think exploring that world is what I love about the world that we're now navigating at PT and being exposed to, and the idea of fantasy and Hollywood, and putting on something to, play that role of how you want the world to perceive you.
I'll add one more thing, and it's because we were taught this in real estate, is people work with you because they like you and you're like them. And so we get that, whoever it is, you get people who like you, they're drawn to you, and then feel connected to you. Thus, they start working with you.
Which is about trust.
Yeah.
Right, and I concur with Angel. And as far as like the Instagram, YouTube world, it's the feedback, the direct feedback that I'm able to get from people, and they'll tell me, you just present stuff so well, you seem so genuine and honest, and it's true. I'm just being myself. I can't be anyone other than myself, and certainly some other people do that, but I think that genuineness connects with people, and like that is, it's the people behind the brands that's important to getting the clients to you.
And real faces in front of the brand, that is maybe harder when you're dealing with more commercial products. Like, I like spending time with Angel, even if we're not designing clothes, and I think to be around that creative environment is inspiring, and I'm totally inspired by the people I meet here, and I think, I'm a big fan of what you guys do. Another question?
For each of you, what is the one thing that you think you do best?
I'm a big fan of trousers. I wear trousers for everything. I don't wear jeans almost ever. I think I've developed a love for a specific fit of trousers that has resonated with people, and I would say we do trousers the best.
I love making jackets. I love getting the shape in women's jackets. It's quite tricky sometimes with busty women, and it's about getting the right structure of fabric, a combination of everything, making sure they have a good bra on.
The approachability and the relatability to what we do, that I think is the best thing that we do. I always say that I'm trying to present a world of attainable aspiration. Change your clothes and change your life.
And ours is, I think, is very much like what Carolyn said. We're in the service business, and we are fanatical about what goes on behind the scenes, making sure that we keep our promises.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you to St. Regis. Thanks to my guests in the panel. And there's an amazing party tonight. See you tonight. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. Cheers.